Okay, so it's December 3rd, and if you missed the Google Meet with some instructions today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Daniel Boone. I'm going to get you started on the article you're supposed to read if you haven't already, and then also I'm going to show you some tips for mapping exploration routes when you go in to start doing your maps. So we are on December 3rd. This is Daniel Boone. And right here, it tells you that you are to insert your own text boxes on these slides to answer the questions with, and absolutely no Googling of answers. I warned you the other day about that. If I see Googled answer responses to these things, I'm just going to have to not grade the assignment. We don't use Google to get answers. So where you find the article you need is linked right to this title. It is a History Channel article for you. So when you open it up, it gives you a page or so to read about, and you look for these answers, all about the Cumberland Gap, the things you saw in the video, that he blazed the trail basically through the Cumberland Gap to help people find their way into Kentucky and Ohio and some of those states. So, you're answering these questions here, and then at the bottom it says click here for map directions. So we'll get to that in a minute. Something I want to show you about him, Daniel Boone was kind of famous in about 1964. NBC, or I'm sorry, Disney Channel made a series about Daniel Boone, and you can still buy them actually. But this is the actor that played Daniel Boone, so famous and such an important story. Kids absolutely loved it. And here's the Fess Parker, who was the actor, Daniel Boone lunchbox. So he was such a big deal. And the famous character always wore this coonskin cap, a raccoon skin cap. In reality, he did not have one. I want to point this out too. It's kind of funny because the exact same actor played Davy Crockett in a similar series. Same actor, looked almost the same. Davy Crockett, they mentioned him in the Story of Us video. He fought at the Alamo. So more of that's coming up too with some Davy Crockett information. But this is the actual Daniel Boone paintings that were made of him at the time and what he may have looked like, or what he probably did look like, because they painted pictures of him. So we know he is famous for discovering that Cumberland Gap, and I want to just show you on your map, it's right about in here. So when you're mapping him and his routes, you're looking for the Wilderness Road and the Great Valley Road. So let me just show you what that looks like really quick in our maps here. These are the resource maps you have. The purple here is the Great Valley Road. Here is Chesapeake Bay. This is a really helpful piece here because the Great Valley Road starts right above Chesapeake Bay. So if you see where Philadelphia is, you just kind of hook down like this. When you get to this spot on Virginia, it sort of almost kind of follows Virginia here. The border of Virginia is just right above it. So you come down here, you get to this spot here, and it starts to flatten out a little bit. Cumberland Gap, where Kentucky's border meets Virginia's point right here, and at the top of Tennessee, that is Cumberland Gap. If you're at the Chesapeake Bay and you come right to the bottom of it here, trace straight across, there's Cumberland Gap. So we need that reference point to map where Daniel Boone explored. So when you come to your map, if you have that really good reference point, let me show you on here. Here's Chesapeake Bay. So Wilderness Road starts above it, comes down, kind of almost follows Virginia's border there. When it hits about here in Kentucky, the bottom of this box here, if you trace across Chesapeake Bay, follow the line, it's right about here. That is your Cumberland Gap. If you find that and give yourself a little symbol for it, maybe a triangle or even a circle would probably be okay, then you'll know Boone's route has to come down, go through Cumberland Gap, and then it hooks up just a little bit. If you're looking back at this map, when he gets to Cumberland Gap, he starts to go north. He never reaches this river right here, never gets that high. So it says here, this is a river on your map. The roads should be below it. So both of these, you come through like this, you're going to see all these rivers up here. We never want to cross those when we draw this on our map. So start over Chesapeake Bay, come down the border of Virginia, Tennessee down here, right where Kentucky and Virginia meet in this little point. That is your Cumberland Gap. That's when you start to hook up just a little bit. Okay, so there's your hint. Once you find Cumberland Gap, right about here, then you can draw your line, hook down, go through Cumberland Gap, and just a tiny little hook. You can see the border of Kentucky is this river here. If your Boone route goes up past that, then you went too far. Okay, so that's how you're going to draw Boone's route in there. You're going to have similar landmarks for all these other ones, like Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark follow the Missouri River all the way until they can't go any further on the Missouri River. Okay, that is your best landmark for mapping their route. And then we know when we read about them that they followed three other rivers to get to the end. You'll be looking for landmarks like that to help you. Lewis and Clark, the Snake River, the Yellowstone River, these forts, those are going to help you figure out where to draw the routes. So put the landmarks in first. If you skip ahead all the way to Zebulon Pike, Pike's Peak, you need to find that before you map where Zebulon Pike went because he discovered Pike's Peak. So if you put Pikes Peak on your map, if you find where that belongs, then you know that in his route he reached Pikes Peak. So we know that that's part of his route. It also tells you in the article when you're reading which Native American tribes he saw, the states he went through. So that helps you map the route. And there are other rivers that he followed as well. So that will help you find him. We'll get more instruction on those guys later, but for now, you want to do Boone's route for sure. Okay, so let me just quickly tell you a couple other things about Boone. First of all, he was from Pennsylvania and he was a Quaker. That's a religious group. And his parents left Europe because Quakers weren't treated very well there. So they wanted religious freedom. And most Quakers coming to America went straight to Pennsylvania. And so that they could be with other people that were the same religious group as them. Um, a lot of people don't realize, and the video doesn't mention really, he was captured by the Shawnee in 1778. He was adopted by the chief, and yes, he was 44 years old at the time. The chief had lost both his sons, they both had died, and he was an older gentleman. He wanted a son to help work and to stay with him. So he adopted Boone as a son. He was held there for about 4 months. He said he was treated very well, but watched. So they watched him really closely so he wouldn't leave. So he was still a prisoner, but they didn't mistreat him or anything like that. We remember him as being this great explorer, and he was really glorified by the TV show he was in and everything. He really did not make a lot of money. He was considered very unlucky in all his business dealings. Some of the people he worked for really took advantage of him and lied to him. So he was sort of swindled out of some of his land deals. He wasn't really all that bright about what he was supposed to do in order to keep the land that he was settling on. So a lot of it was paperwork that he didn't file and things like that. So then when he helped all these other people settle, a lot of them came back and sued him because of the mistakes he made when he was selling land. He ends up moving farther west. He was kind of out in the Kansas area out there, even before in the Louisiana Territory, even before it was purchased, when it was still owned by Spain, before France had it and then sold it to the US. So he moved out there and was kind of trying to hide from everybody else, just trying to get away from some of the things that had happened. He went to Congress and said, listen, I was mistreated. I was swindled. Is there anything you can do to help me so I can have land out here? So they gave him like 850 acres of land, which he ended up having to sell because there were so many lawsuits against him that when people found out he got this land grant, they came after him for money. So he still ended up without the land that he was given by President Madison, actually. So, it's not that he wasn't an honest guy, that he wasn't a good guy. He just really got hooked up with people who were not very honest. And so, on his part, he was just sort of unlucky. But that's what happened to Daniel Boone. So, the thing we want to remember most about him was the fact that he helped make it possible for people to get to these states because of the discovery of his Cumberland Gap right about here. Um, so today you're going to go in, you're going to check out that article in there on Daniel Boone by clicking on the title of that page. If you need any reading help in today's directions, it says if you need reading help or help finding answers from the Daniel Boone article, click here. If you click that, I will read the article for you. I will pause and show you where some of the answers are in case you're struggling, so you'll know what to write down. And so any reading help you need at all, if the article's at all confusing, just click here. You can even kind of scroll through to get to the part you maybe need. But otherwise, the article's not very long, and hopefully you can get it figured out on your own. But definitely the reading help is there. So when you get through with the questions, if you click, takes you to the last slide, Daniel Boone. Here's what you map: Cumberland Gap and the Wilderness and Great Valley roads. You're going to call that Boone's Route in the key. All right. So there is today's assignment. Good luck. If you have any questions, you can message me through GoGuardian, or you can click into the Google Meet if it is during your hour. If it's not during your hour, you will not be able to come to the Google Meet. All right. Good luck.